reverse. Talking like you didn't hear what I said. And when you saw me, you memorized all the words.
Hi, welcome to episode 3 of Nate and Kamara talk about movies and probably other stuff, especially based on the movies that we watched for this episode. Hi, I'm Nate.
I'm Kamara.
Yeah,
you probably knew that already. It's in the title.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Here we are. It's Friday. It's the end of our first week. The movies we watched for today were again A Silent Voice from 2016 and Akira from 1988. Both Japanese anime films, both wildly different from each other. But there are actually some similarities. So there are a few similarities that we'll get into.
Yeah. So I guess we'll...
Also, wait, really quickly. Again, my audio is not great. I'm still in a closet, and my computer is running, and I can hear the fan, so I don't know. I'm sure, no one's listening, so they don't care. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there we go.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the movies in the order that we watched. And we watched on Thursday A Silent Voice, which, as you know, is an anime film. I don't think either of us are huge anime fans. I definitely watch...
Oh, please.
Listen.
Love anime.
No.
What are you talking about?
I like certain things, right? I like Dragon Ball because that's everyone knows that, everyone knows that. And that was a big part of my childhood. But I guess I can it's easier for me to get behind anime just because I guess I'm more
yeah, no, that's fair.
I know a bit more about some of the tropes and things that they throw in there, so it's not uncomfortable for me watching new things. But Nate doesn't.
It's not uncomfortable for me either.
Yeah, but
I don't watch anime shows, but I see plenty of anime movies. Most of them Studio Ghibli, Grave of Fireflies, and Toho films and stuff like that.
The thing is, those films are completely different from how the shows are.
Oh yeah. No, I know they're completely different, but we didn't watch any shows for this week.
I know, but it's just
movies. But A Silent Voice, I've got some stuff to say. I have a few things.
So, I guess...
So, A Silent Voice.
Yeah.
Give us a quick summary of the movie, Kamara.
So, essentially, A Silent Voice is about a boy who was a bully. He bullied a new student who happened to be deaf, and essentially there was no real reason for it. It was just kind of a childish rationalization for that type of bullying. But when I guess he received what goes around comes around, he starts getting bullied, and he goes through the rest of his school life alone. And the movie basically follows him trying to make amends for all of his past mistakes by becoming friends with the person that he bullied, and just I guess trying to show that he's a better person than he was then. It's a lot more complicated than that, but that's
but also,
the simple.
It's not really that much more.
It's not super complicated, but it's not as simple as I feel bad, so I'm gonna. Yeah,
well, it was more of he was about to kill himself, and before he did, he wanted to go say sorry.
Yeah.
But then he didn't kill himself.
Yeah.
So.
Because his mom yelled at him.
Then, yeah, basically because his mom was like, if you kill yourself, I'll burn down the house. So he was like, oh. Which is a little weird.
It's a fair reason, I guess.
Also, as a quick disclaimer, if you hear eating sounds from me, it's because I made a smoothie and I'm eating it. I'm drinking it. Well, it's not a drink.
I guess you
eat a food.
You can
slurping it, I guess.
Yeah,
not slurping. That's
slurping
the wrong word.
Is a mix of eating.
I am consuming the smoothie that I made.
Ingesting it.
So if you hear I don't know.
Yeah, he's ingesting. Oh.
This suddenly became an ASMR podcast.
Yeah. Do that one more time. Oh, that's nice.
Great. Okay, anyways, back to this touching film about suicide and bullying.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give my quick thoughts on the film. So I watched the first hour twice, in 3-year time, like amongst 3 years, right?
It took you 3 years to watch the first hour of this movie?
No, it took me 3 years to finish this movie.
I was gonna say, it's not like it's that long of an hour. It's 1 hour.
No, it's just because in ninth grade I watched an hour. It was in a club that I really regret being a part of, but
we can skip that part. No one cares about the club you're in.
Yeah,
let's talk about the movie.
So they showed us the first hour, and you know it was like one of those days when they just show it to you and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna finish it, but you never do. It was a good film, and then earlier this year I watched the first hour again, and it was the same situation, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna finish this, and I didn't want to, and then I committed to it by putting this down as one of the movies that we'd watch, and I finally finished it, and I don't regret. I regret taking 3 years to watch it, because
I was gonna say, if it took you 3 years to get past the first hour, you must not have enjoyed the movie that much.
No, I did enjoy it, but I was really lazy. I was like, damn, it was like Dragon Ball
lazy.
Super. Listen,
it does not take work to watch.
Listen,
I
was committed to another anime. Okay, I was committed to another anime. I was watching Dragon Ball Super, and that's like a 130 episode anime.
So what you're saying is you had 130 episodes free to watch Dragon Ball Super, but you didn't have 2 hours to watch A Silent Voice?
It's easier to sit through 30 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, but anyway, it was good. It was good.
I'm putting my smoothie down. I liked the movie. It was a little bit too long. I think had you cut like 10 minutes out of there, which would have been better, like 10 or 15 minutes. But I sort of went into it expecting it, because most of the anime movies that I watch are like Studio Ghibli movies. So when I saw the poster for this movie on Netflix, I was like, oh, it's going to be a like anime movie, Yeah. So I went into it with sort of an idea that it was going to be like this like hyper-sexualized thing, which I guess is the stereotype that anime has, which isn't true that all anime is hyper-sexualized and all that stuff. But I went into it with those preconceptions. And for the first 10 minutes, I thought they were totally true. Like, it was like super cheesy and corny, and the music was super loud and like overbearing and annoying. But as I sort of like got through it, I started to connect more to the film and to the characters, and I actually ended up really liking it. I was expecting to like come on this podcast and be like, okay, Silent Voice, I hate it.
I was expecting.
And I was like, oh well, like that'll be like a fun episode. But no, it's actually really good. I do have my issues with it. Mainly the music is super manipulative and like cloying, and it's got all this like stereotypical like anime stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. That
I'm just not crazy about. But that might be because I am an American who doesn't watch a lot of anime.
Yeah.
But anyways, sort of going back to the road that you were going down before, one of my questions when I was watching the movie is, and this is less of a movie question, more just a general question that I think the movie talks about and goes through really well, is everybody complicit in bullying,
Just
and
in general?
I think so. Just like in general, like if you're in a room with 20 people and they're all bullying one person, or like one person's bullying one person, no one else is doing anything, but they're not stopping them, are you complicit in the bullying? I think yes.
Yeah. I
right.
Yeah, no. As long as I'm
picking
you're
up
not,
my
like,
smoothie.
If you're not like taking a stand, like trying to stop it, or at least be there for the person being bullied, you're being complicit whether you like it or not. Even if you're not actively participating, if you're not even laughing at the jokes that are being made, or the bullying that's going on, you're still being complicit.
Yeah, and that's a question that I think the movie goes about really, really well. Because basically it starts with this kid, I don't remember his name, but he had bullied this girl, and then all the bullies sort of, they got in trouble, so they started bullying him, and then he sort of got singled out, and he sort of lived his life by himself and alone, and he came back to sort of fix it, and when he went back to this girl who he bullied, he also dealt with sort of his older friends from middle school and elementary school who also helped bully her, and they were trying to put distance or put themselves away from the bullying in different ways. Like I feel like the main character was pretty upfront about like he had bullied her, he was sorry.
Yeah.
But then there were other sort of secondary and tertiary characters, I guess, who not so much, who either put it, just, I don't know.
Like
I don't
they
know.
continue to blame her. Like the deaf girl.
There's a lot of victim blaming in this movie.
And
from one character, but
I like how the movie takes a more realistic stance when it comes to victim blaming, in the sense that like the movie doesn't make amends with all of his old like 3rd, 4th grade friends. Like there's one scene where he sees one of them at like a shop, where like he's like selling food and they don't talk to each other. He doesn't appear in the movie significantly at all, and then one of his other friends who from like 3rd grade doesn't show up ever again.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like some people learn their lesson, some people don't. Some people kind of learn, and some people just like go on their go their own way, and you don't know what happens to them. And I really like that about this movie, because people don't do that in real life. Some people are just stubborn and won't accept their role in ruining their own life or ruining how things were.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, they're also the sort of those really, like, there's a good degree, or like there's a good amount of like realism and sort of looking at this story not as like your basic like Hollywood story of like, well, everything will end up fine, because like some stuff ends up fine, but also I feel like the like main message of the movie is like it's hard work to regain trust, and it's not always easy, but if you keep pushing, maybe eventually you'll get closer and closer to it. Which I think is what the movie sort of leaves you with, which is really, I guess, a hopeful note. But there are also those really sort of basic, like, anime, like, cliches, and there's all this stuff that also sort of took me out of the movie a little bit. Like when all his friends find out that he had bullied the deaf girl, they all go. like, leave, which is not real, which is, like especially because, like, in the story, like, he had been proving that he was trying to make
people
good,
just ignore that,
basically. And... Right, which is not to say, which is just like, that part stuff like took me out. I was like, well, people wouldn't really act that way.
I also just I really liked that the movie didn't put an emphasis on like love interests. Just because, I mean, even though we've basically been spoiling the movie already, but this is another spoiler. Even though the deaf girl, she did say that she loves the main character, but he couldn't understand her, and at first I was like a bit annoyed that they didn't go back to that, just because I kind of like my happy endings. But then,
well, the movie has a pretty happy ending.
It does have a happy ending.
I mean, like, there's that scene where like all the papers like flying around and he's standing outside.
And he's beautiful. Like, that it was a good ending. But at first, seeing like, oh wow, they never go back to like the fact that she literally admits that she has a crush on him. He never knows, and I was like, dang, that kind of sucks. That feels like something wasn't finished. But then at the same time, going back, I realized that that's actually a really good way to do it, because like it feels cheesy when it's like, wow, this guy who bullied you relentlessly for like a year comes back. For a long time.
Like it was a long
thing.
It wasn't like it was like 2 weeks and it was like a big thing.
Realistically, they wouldn't end up together. And that's not even like the main thing. It's really just like I feel like them being like a thing, right? Or like, the movie trying to set them up as that kind of takes away from the fact that he's not doing this for that reason. He's doing it because he actually cares. He's doing it because
and also one thing that I really appreciate about the movie is that there are a lot of like side characters who keep bringing up that he's doing this out of guilt, and that they're not like real friends because he's trying to make himself feel better, which at first I agreed with, but as the movie like went on, seeing the things that he ended up doing, specifically, falling off a building, I was like, well, he's clearly like not in this just to make himself feel better. And even if he is, I feel like that even adds to the movie as well. Like, it just adds more layers of complexity to the story. And one thing that I really liked it took me until almost the very end of the movie to like figure out why it was happening. But there were a lot of really wide, empty shots of like shoes or bikes or heads or legs, you know.
Yeah.
Like the way that the movie's shot, like there's a lot of silence and a lot of empty moments. And I realized at the end why, which was sort of a thematic thing. But I feel like doing it that way and not really explaining it really puts you in the head of this main character and puts you in the head of this person who's trying to disassociate with the people around him because he feels like he shouldn't be with them because of the stuff that he did when he was a kid. So he tried to pull himself out of the world in the way that it's shot, you know, as well as sort of a very like isolating way of like, here's like this character with just a wall and there's no one near him in the frame, which makes him seem even more far away and alienated, which I really liked.
Yeah, I agree.
And also, while I didn't love the music, you know, like the music was really like it was the basic anime like soft piano where you can like hear the strings, you know, it's like you know, which I wasn't crazy about. I really loved the sound design. Like there was just the sound design I thought added such a layer of atmosphere and feeling to this movie of just hearing like footsteps and cars and birds and all this and all these little details just adding to the realism of the story, which I also just really, really appreciated.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I guess we can move on to Akira.
Yeah. Well, really quickly about this movie as well, and I feel like it also has a little bit to do with Akira. I feel like this movie really, at the end of the day, is about the hope that I have it written down. It's about the hope that you can one day make good on all your sins, and that you can move on and not ignore the past, but move on and learn with it and grow with it.
Yeah.
And that you'll have the space to grow and do these things, which I think is a really good message and a really truthful message. Yeah. I guess, which I just really appreciate that kind of thoughtfulness especially from a movie that I wasn't expecting to be really all that thoughtful.
Yeah.
which is on me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So what would you rate this movie out of 5 stars?
That's a 4.
Yeah, I give it a 3.5. Which feels fair to me.
Rating for you.
Well, I think once you're above like 2.5 stars, like once you're above like 50%, you're fine.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like a 4 or like a 3.5. Like it's just like it would have been a 4, but the music I'm not crazy about. It was a little too long. It was a little too like cloying at times. You know, like it wanted to really push me into feeling this way or that way, which I'm not crazy about when a movie does that. So it's a 3.5.
Yeah, that's fair.
Akira, on the other hand,
is
not a 3.5.
I don't even know how to feel about that movie.
Yeah.
I know
cool. Well, so let's move on.
I know it's good, but I just
to Akira. Yeah. So really quickly, I'll give a quick summary of Akira, brought to you by IMDb, because Akira is a big movie. Akira from 1988. It's an animated. It's a Japanese film. It's about a secret military project endangers Neo-Tokyo when it turns a biker gang member into a rampaging psychopath who can only be stopped by 2 teenagers and a group of psychics. Not the best
it sounds
summary. It sounds really so much worse
than it actually is. But yeah, I'll let you
but I guess first. That's what it's about. Yeah. Also, I think it was put out by Toho Pictures.
Never heard of them, but
who they put out most of Akira Kurosawa's movies, which
it's good.
Pretty cool. If it was Toho, I don't actually know. Yeah, the Toho company.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. They also did a lot of Studio Ghibli and that kind of stuff. Akira. Really quickly, I hope they never do the live-action remake of this. Because I think Taika Waititi was attached to direct a live-action version of Akira. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Even though I love Taika Waititi, but but don't go there.
Yeah.
And so I loved it. I mean, I had really high expectations going in because Akira is sort of one of the most important animated films ever made. You know, so I like went in. I was like, well, this is going to be like one of the most important animated films ever made, and it's really great. Really quickly, like the atmosphere of just the world of Neo Tokyo was spectacular. Like the lighting and this sort of like this the neon lights, the reds and the greens and the blues, as well as the sound design, the soundtrack, and it's like on a very surface level, it's one of like the coolest movies.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
just
so
aesthetic.
Like slick and cool. Yeah, it's just as in its aesthetic alone, it's awesome. But of course, there's a lot more to this movie than just
The aesthetic.
you know, cool people on like motorcycles hitting each other. Yeah, so we can get into that soon. But why don't you give your quick summaries?
I genuinely don't know how to feel about the movie. Like I think it's really good, but there's just so much in the movie, from like the aesthetic alone and the story, that just it makes it hard to like say how I feel.
Yeah, well, also it doesn't help though we finished it like an hour ago.
Yeah, like it didn't, you know, it doesn't marinate as much because we're talking about it so soon. But
yeah, which we'll figure out a way to rectify that.
Yeah.
Oh, I finished my smoothie.
Dang.
Sorry. Okay. Also, one thing that summary didn't tell you, which is crucial to understanding this movie, is so it was World War III. So the movie opens with Tokyo, a vision of Tokyo like you would normally see, you know, buildings, houses, the normal Tokyo, and it's dead silent, and there's this nuclear blast right in the middle, and it absorbs the whole thing, and it's gone. And keep in mind, this is a Japanese film, who, you know, 40 years before the movie came out, you know, obviously they were bombed with 2 nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
And so then we flash forward to, I think it's like 20 years to 2019, where Neo Tokyo, they moved, and there are these sort of clashes between the government and the people living there, and there's this, it's not necessarily it's sort of a dystopian future where there's a semi-authoritarian police state, and like biker gangs like roam around and blow up cars and all this stuff. And then we meet our main character, who is the leader of a biker gang. You know, he fights other biker gangs, just goes out, it's basically a gang of kids. Yeah, and that background is super, super important to sort of, I think, understanding the movie, because what I think the movie really is about is it's about power, and fears about power, and anxiety about power. And I wrote it down. I mean, obviously it's about Hiroshima,
Yeah.
you know,
And Nagasaki.
and it's about anxiety and fear. But I think the movie, I mean, it's also sort of a superhero movie in a way, of it's sort of like the like core of power, and you know, with great power comes great responsibility. I like, obviously that's,
It's a classic.
you know, it's classic, like superhero quote. But I really feel like that's at the core of this movie, is like what happens when power gets out of grasp, you know, and when it freaks out. There's this line in the movie when a kid says, "You shouldn't be using your power like this," to Tetsuya, who basically has become a super weapon, and he says that he doesn't care. It's a very layered film, you know, and it's a very like allegorical, metaphorical film. But also on a surface level, it's so much fun to watch, and it's so like well done that I feel like that allows you to look deeper, and it really carries you through this really like heavy movie, which is great.
Yeah. First off, I don't think I've ever seen so many explosions in a single movie. There are a lot of explosions. There are a lot of explosions. And second off, I think it says something to your point of power, and the fact that, I mean, I don't know how well I can explain it, but the fact that scientists in the movie, or I guess like science just created this super weapon for the sake of doing it. And that's like a reflection of I guess nuclear weapons and war right now.
Yeah. Or it's a reflection on nuclear trauma, you know, and what happens to this country, to this.
Because, you know,
I mean, obviously, it's in a movie, it's World War III.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that it mirrored a good amount of feelings that Japan had post World War II, where it was like, we are this powerless country, you know.
And we're the subject.
I mean, not powerless, but they're in this space of powerlessness where they've just been blown up by 2 nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
Like, how do we move forwards?
And
in the world of this movie, they move forwards by seizing power, and stealing it and grasping it and trying to control it, which is how sort of Neo Tokyo becomes the police state that it is. It's not a police state necessarily, but it's not that far away from like there's civil unrest, there are protests and tanks blowing up, and the cops shoot people like 50 times, you know. And there's this line in the movie as well where one of the members of the parliament, he's talking to the colonel, and he says, the post-war is over, stop paying for ghosts. He says something like that, which I think pretty clearly sums up like the core of this movie, which is it's this fear and anxiety over not having power and not being able to protect yourselves. So you just try and amass as much power as you can, which leads to the abuse of power, which leads to destruction and death and pain and suffering and all these horrible things happening.
It's also interesting that this movie was made in 1988, but a lot of its anxieties that are reflected are very present today.
Now,
like, you know, we have a whole pandemic going on, which is different, but a lot of people would still consider nuclear war to be their greatest anxiety. Like huge countries have thousands and thousands of nuclear bombs. Why? Because of power. Because we feel like we need to protect ourselves from what? You know, you don't need thousands of bombs, but we have them. We still have them, you know? And I think it's interesting, like this movie, it was made decades ago, and it's still relevant in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, and the movie sort of, like, it, I think it just speaks to the power of this movie, that it can be, you know, on one level, this just awesome, like, action movie, and on another level, this really sort of deep meditation, I guess, on nuclear war and the abuse of power and what happens when it goes wrong. And also this really, like, touching story of this kid who was powerless, who wanted to try and, like, save himself but couldn't. And when he's allowed to, like, everything goes wrong. And the ending, you know, like, there's this, like, 2-minute montage towards the end of the film where it's all silence of this really slow-moving, like, nuclear blast, like, pushing forwards. And it's really beautiful and, like, awe-inspiring. I wish the movie theaters weren't closed, because this movie was supposed to be re-released in IMAX on April 3rd, which would have been awesome to see.
Cool.
Yeah, to go in the theater and have this experience of this movie. But here we are.
Yeah.
It was a great movie.
Yeah. I also liked how it didn't have a resolution.
Yeah, it really did.
It just kind of ends. And I guess that's the most realistic way it could have ended, really.
I mean, it has a sort of a resolution of, like, characters where maybe they don't necessarily fully learn their lessons, but they are on the road to understanding the damage that they've caused. It doesn't have a world resolution, though. Yeah, no.
Like the world doesn't get better, you know?
Yeah.
It still kind of sucks.
But they're on the step to doing it.
Yeah.
Right. But I still think that it's sort of a hopeful movie where it's like, you know, we've learned from our mistakes of what happens when power goes astray, so maybe we can move forwards and live better. Also, I think it's really interesting that Grave of the Fireflies came out the same year as this movie did. Grave of the Fireflies, if you don't know, it's a Studio Ghibli film. It's so sad. It's a beautiful film. It's the story of a brother and his younger sister trying to survive the end of World War II in Japan under constant bombing and fire bombing, and it's really a tragic film. It's a very anti-war movie. You know, it's really like, instead of like looking at the soldiers killing each other, look at the innocents who had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
But here they are, still in pain, and I think it's really. I think it could have been a really cool thing to look at Grave of the Fireflies and its sort of inspection of the innocents lost by war, and then Akira, which looks at sort of the powerlessness and then want to have as much power as possible so as to never be put in that position again, and the cycle of war and power and pain and fear and anxiety and how it just keeps building and building and building. Yeah. And it's a cyclical thing. Which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could have a much longer conversation about Akira, because it's a huge movie. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening. Like, there's a lot of corruption and bureaucracy versus, like, soldiers and action, and there's thought versus action. And then, of course, there's Akira. I mean, not Akira. And then there's the character of Akira in the film. There's just a lot going on. So we've barely scratched the surface, but yeah. I highly, highly recommend this film. It's on Hulu, so if you have Hulu, you can watch it. You can watch it subtitled, or there's an English dub.
It's really bad.
Subs not dubs.
Hey, weeaboo.
Yeah, I gave this movie a 4.5 out of 5.
I don't even think I can give it a rating. I feel like you have to watch it. It's just something you have to watch on your own.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a really great movie. I highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, now that Animation Week is over, I'd like to say I'm sorry for not watching Trolls World Tour, because it's on demand and we could have watched it, and I can only imagine how good Trolls World Tour would have been.
Man. Oscar winning.
Yeah. So, what was your favorite movie of the week? Of the, I guess, 4.5 movies, because one of them was a short film. What was your favorite one?
I guess, I think I'd say Akira.
Kirikou?
No.
Wow.
Even though I love Kirikou, it's definitely not as entertaining and thought-provoking. Which, even though it's a kid's film, it's still none of those things really.
Yeah.
I also like The Silent Voice. I think these two movies were really strong.
Yeah, I think for me it's Akira or Waltz with Bashir.
Yeah.
Which also, those two are, I mean, they're not similar movies and they're about different things, but they're both about the nature of power.
Yeah.
And how power can... For Waltz with Bashir, about how power can tell stories, and in this film, how power can destroy. Yeah. Which, I don't know, could be cool to watch later on. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the end of our Animation Week.
Yeah.
Woo! Next week we're gonna watch 5 horror films. Hopefully they'll be scary.
Hopefully.
I'm gonna try and watch them the night before we would record instead of at like 10 in the morning.
Yeah, you have that atmosphere.
So if so I'm a little excited. I'm a little scared. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Yeah. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for listening. Please keep listening. We'll be back
if you
on Monday.
Yeah.
The movie that we're watching for Monday, if you care, is Eyes Without a Face.
Sounds scary.
So yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's scary or more of it's a drama. Like I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. We'll watch it and we'll find out. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So long.
All right. Bye.